My name is Dr. Eleanor Thompson. I am the CEO of Loosen the Course That Bind LLC, a for-profit business. I'm glad that you tuned in tonight. I thank you for your support. I appreciate you. I am thankful to God for another day in the land of the living. I thank Him for this awesome platform that He's allowed me to be on. I thank God also for Pastor Francis Paul and his lovely wife, Lady Michelle Elder Paul, the owners of TrueLifeRadio.net. I just thank God for them. I thank God for their generosity. I thank them for the love for that they show and the kindness toward God's people. And whenever you get a chance and opportunity, even if you can sow into this, I would appreciate if you do so. And if you can't, sow some prayers, because you never get enough of prayers. So that'd be great if you could do that for them. I would appreciate that so much. I admonish you to like, click, and share when you get the opportunity to share this with someone. This particular session, you may not need it now, as I always put a disclaimer out there. However, there may be someone that you might come in contact with or come in touch with that you may be able to share this, and they may be able to help someone, or they may be able to help someone else on what you've given them. So share it so someone else can hear it. Okay, and I appreciate that on tonight. And again, I am on this particular platform every second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. Again, I am on this platform every second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And remember, I always say there is life after abuse. Even so, sometimes I have different subjects and topics on this particular platform. It deals with life basically. It's a domestic violence platform, but however, life happens too, and I incorporate that as well. So I'm glad that you're here tonight again with me. So before I get started, if you are any type of abusive situation and you need help immediately, please call 911. But however, if you need some assistance and some resources, there's a place called Safe Horizon where they have a plethora of resources and help that they'll get you to wherever you need to go at. Amen. And so that number is 1-855-234-1042. Again, that number is 1-855-234-1042. And if you're outside of New York, you can call 1-855-484-2846. Again, that number is 1-855-484-2846. And again, those are the numbers that you may be able to call on if you need some assistance in your walk. Amen. So on tonight, for the last few sessions, I was having a conversation with you about trauma. Now, firstly, I started about with rape and the various components, including shame and guilt. Now, as I continued, I parked at trauma for a while because I was going to deal with trauma and rape, and then I was going to deal with the PST part of it, right? So on tonight, and I was dealing, and these were the various distinct symptoms of trauma in a woman who were raped, right? And I told you the story that I was a victim of a rape situation. Amen. And I think I was like 15 or 14 years old at that time. But I can still remember from start to finish all of that, right? So now, this week's session was supposed to be about the RSTs, or the rape trauma syndrome, in reference to women. But however, last week, and I was listening to a colleague of mine, I would say a Dr. Archer per se, and and other women that they were talking about also and also Sister Winnie, they was having like something for Men's Month, right? So I realized, I was like, boy, I'm not really up on this thing right here. They were talking about June being Men's Health Month. So I said, so as I was pondering on trauma and rape and Men's Health Month, what came to me was about rape and trauma in men. So for tonight, we are going to look at the mental health part of men who are sexual assault, who are sexual assault victims. Keep in mind, this can vary, right? Because remember that trauma sometimes typically lasts from a few, I would say, days to a few months, gradually fading as you process, you know, as you process the unsettling events. They have to go through a process, But even when you are feeling better, you may still be troubled by some, from time to time, by some painful triggers that you may have, or memories or emotions. That's what they are, such as anniversary of that event or something that has happened, that reminds you of that particular trauma, right? So now June, because it's slated as Men's Health Month, um, and what it is a natural. It's a national, I would say, observance used to raise awareness about healthcare for men and focus on encouraging, like I'm saying, little boys probably won't have much to do with it, but you can start them young, by eating healthy and stop eating all the cereal with there's nothing but sugar in it. You really give them a whole cup or 2 cups of sugar, a bowl of sugar, and some milk. That's what safety. That will be feeding our children, right? And their families to practice, and we need to start to implement and to practice, healthy living decisions at the same time, because we only have one of us, and we have to take care of ourselves, right? Such as exercise and healthy eating. But tonight, I'm not talking about that because that's not my forte. Usually, what that looks like is the physical part of health, where men get to eat correctly and all that wonderful stuff, watching their diets and as they consume or what the consumptions are per se. But however, I'm coming from another level, another way tonight, right? So research shows that rape, in particular, is one of the most traumatic forms of trauma a person or female can experience. You're like, wow, some people don't look at it as such, but it's really something else, because that thing could be with you for years, years and years and years, and years and years and years, and years and years and years. Okay, so it does just not go away, because it's not a pleasant experience. Anything that traumatizes you or to make you do something outside of your will, or what you do not want to do, that's traumatizing. Something that's taken from you that you're not giving up freely, that's traumatizing. That's just like somebody coming to take you walking down the street and somebody taking your, snatching your purse. Traumatizing. They're taking something that does not belong to them and is not given freely, right? So research shows that rape, in particular, is one of the most traumatic forms of trauma a person, or male or female, excuse me, can experience. Now, according to statistics, it says every 98 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted, but it is a common misconception, I would say, that only women were victims. Research shows that at least 1 in 6 men experiences sexual assault, either as children or as adults. The trauma of which can manifest into complex emotional problems, such as it says, depression and post-traumatic problems, and depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, as they were saying before, as I was just reading this, what the research says, children Um, even and I think most of it, as we go along, again, most of it happens sometimes when they're children, they're children, and a lot of it happened like in middle age. Is a different stages of childhood. Things happen to you, and you remember it. And sometimes one development be a little difficult than the other or whatever, but there's still trauma there. There's still trauma attached to that event, so it's not so easily forgotten. Even sometimes, sometimes things that have happened, and I remember later, but I was like, oh wow, I totally forgot about that because I pushed it so far back in the corridors of my mind, per se, somewhere in the room, and shut the door and locked the key and threw away the key. But these things surface, and sometimes how you deal with it could be good or bad, right? So, in reference to the PSTD, which again is the post-traumatic stress disorder, it is characterized or defined, as indicated by flashbacks or of the traumatic event that has happened. Then again, it's also characterized by the avoidance behavior. You don't want to be bothering nobody. You stay away from people. Also negative emotions and hypoarousal or among other people. You just don't want to be around anyone per se. Now, male rape suffers in silence per se. Gender rape the compound of it is the trauma for men who are victims of rape and sexual abuse. Male rape and sexual abuse per se is a largely hidden crisis. Mainly so it's because that nobody wants to believe or think that um, male, male cannot be raped per se. Nothing can be taken from them. But it's such a hidden thing because male is supposed to be so masculine, right? For those men, okay, first and foremost, female survivors never report their experiences among men. It's even higher. Because even so, like I say, even with domestic violence, men are also victims of domestic violence, and the number would be higher per se, but because they do not report to the correct people, authorities, no one knows really about it. They keep it kind of hush hush or whatever because it's like taboo for a man to be in a domestic violence where he's the one being abused. And the same thing with male rape. Even though women still there's still a higher number of a number for women of being raped than men absolutely so still, but there is still a number that is not counted per se because of in the male because of all the stigmatism that goes along with that. Okay, so for those men who do come forward about sexual abuse, the evidence suggests that it takes them 3 decades. Did you hear what I said? 3 decades. That's 30 years. So a decade is 10 years, right? So it's three of them. 3 decades on average to do so, to come forward with this stuff. Because sometimes, again, it's all about the processing and all the negative stuff that goes along with it. And it's according to how old they are at the time, all those things come into account, right? Now, when we hear the word rape, our mental image quickly is usually a male perpetrator per se and a female victim. But men do get raped too. They do. Decades ago, the rape of women and children was were neglected per se and collectively denied. And also that of the rape of men. But they are doing a little bit better now with the women per se, but it's still, they still have to still go through so much. Just all the It's like by the time they get finished with you, you feel like you're the one that did the crime instead of the person who they should have been questioning and ironing out. But they make you, they need to take different approaches, and there should be different laws and to should be set according to that. But that's a whole nother thing right there. Now, right, few people realize how frequently the rape of men occurs, and even few know how to respond in a way that's respectful. Respect, I said respectfully helps the victim, because the victim, I mean, because they really show, sometimes they show no respect whatsoever, because they need to get trained. They need to get retrained in dealing with rape victims per se, even with the males, because it's a touchy subject, very, very much so. You already been victimized already, and it's just invaded. It's traumatic, and it's invading your privacy, right? Now, okay, while some people may acknowledge that some men are raped in prison, that's the first thing to say. Okay, well, we know that they get spooned up in prison. Okay, but that's not the only place that it happens, right? Most do not think the violation, breach, or negligence or breaking the law of adult males occur in the broader community, but it does. You have the homeless men. You have a lot of, you have people walking the streets. You have, children that are going to school. You have different uh, segments of people, right? Okay, and statistics states that men make up 10 to 15% of all adult sexual assault victims, and probably more. But because they are not, going, and they're not telling nobody about it, right? They're not reporting it. Okay, and another study says that more than 3,000 adults in America found that 10% of males have been raped during their adulthood. Another study states that uh, that college students found that 16% of men had been forced against their will to have sex at some point in their adult life. So it happens. You got these fraternities. You have a lot of things that are going on, and you don't know what's taking place in those arenas when these things are going on. You got uh, children are getting raped in the bathroom. When they even when they're doing sports and stuff like that, they go in the bathroom and stuff like that. You have to watch them. You have to be watchful with the children. And like I said, I don't really want to get into that right now with the children part of it, but sometimes it starts right here, right, right there with the children, and they grow up to be adults, and they damage goods. If things are not taken care of properly, and they don't get that correct help that they need, it could be a big problem, right? As well, as to, we have to be more mindful. We have to be more diligent and vigilant when it concerns our children. Don't think just because they're small that they're safe. They're more of a target, right? And the people who does it mostly are family, friends of the family, or in the household. Could be an uncle, a niece, a nephew. Watch those things. Watch them. Be very vigilant. They could say what they want to say. They could say you could be paranoid. Let them say what they want, long as your children are safe. Now, when men are raped, the person who usually assaults them is another man. However, it is possible for women to rape men as well. Say what? Absolutely. Although the crime is much less frequent and has been documented and researched to an even lesser than the same sex rape, right? But however the case would be, men do get raped, and what happens is the women that rapes the men. Now, here we go. I read that the men are less likely to report this, again, because um, they are less likely to report being raped by a woman, because at the time of the person or at that time, because they don't want to be look like as a punk. Oh, you let a woman rape you? You should be glad, man. You get all these wild, crazy things. It's like, yeah, but if again, I don't care how appealing it is. If they don't want it, they don't want it. And sometimes you have women really who are really, they're very, very aggressive, and they take what they want. Especially they know that you're not that you're a weak man, but you know that you're so kind and gentle or whatever. So they're gonna play on that. And if they're, God forbid, if they're like Amazonish, Amazon women, you done. And yeah. So one particular case that I'm reading about was the fact that the victim, who was a boy, and he was 7 years old, and the girl was 12 years old, and he stated it messed up his life forever. His life was messed up. So you probably feel that, well, you don't know what that sometimes some people they just adjust to that kind of thing right there and fall into it and become really just very, very rambunctious sexually, and things like that. But there are other people that then it is traumatizing to them, and they don't want no part of it, because those kind of things can make you or break you in life. Because he could be the one that now, he could be a person that just mess up everybody who he meets, because he was messed up, and because he don't know how to feel about stuff, and in a strained relationship or such. So we as adults have to be careful how we handle children. And later, like I said, I will deal with that. Now we have like some effects of sexual violence. Okay. As I was they were doing a study, and there was like 40 male rape victims, and they provided uh, details of their assault. And these are a few of them. These are some of the effects. Remember, I'm dealing with the mental part of it, of the rape of men, right? So this is the physiological disturbance, right? And then you have the long-term effects and reporting issues. Most assaults were carried out by using physical or violent forces. Again, with rape, you know, more of the time there is assault going on with it, physical assault along with it. And sometimes, according to the abuser, they will play the mind game, especially if it's a younger, maybe it's a child or what, they will play the mind game on them as well, right? And then what happens is, in a variety of circumstances, they would use the physical forces, right? And then some kind of circumstances as well, as a result of being raped, then you have the anger, the long-term effects, including anxiety. Then you have the depression part of it, increase of anger and vulnerability. Because at that place, sometimes you're just so vulnerable, you out there and you don't know what to do, right? It's like run for cover, but there's no cover to run to. The loss of self-image. Then you have the emotional distancing, where you just kind of distance yourself emotionally from people. I think I can still do that. Sometimes that's a protection barrier for me, per se. That's my protection sometimes. Self-blame, because then you blame yourself for everything. You blame yourself because you got raped. And then sometimes because of these um, things that happen, the emotional things that happen, you develop self-harming behaviors. You want to take pills, you want to kill yourself, you want to commit suicide. You want to set your wrist, all kinds of stuff. And because when you get into these kind of things, and these kind of symptoms also happen when when children they come out of some kind of abusive sexual relationships or something like that. These kind of things happen and they show up and it's like why are you doing this? But you have to dig deeper and see if there's a reason why they're doing what they're doing. They're not just doing it because they don't know how to deal with it. So all kind of different behaviors just start to come up because they don't know how to handle it. So they handle it just the best that they can or could, per se. Now you have some insights from mental health professionals, and they are these. Sometimes victims may turn to the legal and the medical part of it or the system for assistance, and many times they are denied, right? Because whatever the help that is received, the victim usually leaves feeling they feel more victimized, and these negative experiences have been termed as the second rate or the secondary victimization. And that means to say that these people, because you go to these agencies and ask for help and do things like that, and again you feel like you're the one that caused the crime, or by the time they get finished asking you all these questions because they're so insensitive, and the way they just do it because they realize that this is somebody's personal life. I mean, do it in a way that at least give the person some respect. You make you feel that you're being raped all over again. You put me through the situation, to the same thing all over again. I'm reliving this event now. I'm reliving this, right? Men face challenges, distinct challenges, when they are victims of sexual violence. People don't think they do, but they do. But their physical, emotional, and psychological needs are not being met, per se. Now, what are the myths of that? It's just like I would say, uh, you have the male. Okay, the male being the have an aggressive female, and now they say well, why he's going to be fearful and all of this, because if he's not in it and whatever, and his mind not in it, and if he's not able to perform, she could either beat him badly or kill him. It's according to how aggressive she is. So he has to be able to perform, whether he wants to or not, right? See, so here are some myths and I would say misconceptions about the male part of it, about the male victims. Non-institutionalized men are rarely assaulted. That's not true, because when I was reading, they have like mostly people who are mentally have a mental problem. They are really victims of sexual abuse. They are, and so we have to really be careful about that and make sure, if you have someone who has challenges, mental challenges or whatever, make sure that they're okay down there, because they have the tendency really, and people have the tendency to use them. I've seen it per se with the females, going home for home visits and stuff like that. They have the tendency, their family members take advantage of them. It's so these things are just so twisted. So yeah, it's really crazy. But I am gonna stop here because my time is up, and I will finish this, as the Lord's will, on the next session that I'll finish up the male part of the health issue. And remember that there are wounds that never show on the body, that are deeper and more hurtful than anything that bleeds. Okay? Remember that. And again, as I told you last time, your trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. It's your responsibility to get healed, to be healed, because you want to be whole. Amen. So on that note, I bid you good night. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you again for tuning in. Have a blessed evening, everyone. Good night.